Okay, this is video 3 or tutorial 3 for this warehouse building. In this tutorial we are going to measure volumes. In the previous tutorial we added drawings, or previous tutorials we added drawings, we scaled those drawings, we rotated them, we added some dimensions, and we measured some areas. This one is going to be slightly different, that we're going to measure volumes. We're going to do it in the same way. We're just going to change the display of the measurement to a volume measurement. You may have to, if you're working in DIT's computer labs, you may have to bring back in that building you had exported previously, top left hand corner. To do that you may have to close down the building you're working on, top left hand corner, import CostX data, and go find that building where you saved it. In my case it's in my drive, and it could be there in Warehouse 2. Select that, open, and click select. Now I'm not going to import that building because I already have it in here, so I'm just going to open it up again, double click, and essentially I've got my measurements from my previous building. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to measure my foundations. I can see from this drawing I have my foundations plan at 1:100 in terms of its scale, but I have some details here at 1:20. Now I can't have two scales on the same drawing, so I'm going to import or add another drawing, same one, CMD2-2007 foundation, click open. It'll come in as 0.2, foundation 0.2, click insert. I'm going to rotate that, and I'm going to double click on my drawing properties and change the scale to 1:20. So I have two of the same drawings. One will be scaled at 1:100, which is where I'm going to do my measurements, but I can also take some measurements off the details on that drawing at 1:20. So I'm going to set up a new dimension by clicking dimensions, add dimension group. I'm going to measure pads first, concrete pads. I'll keep it in my standard folder. I could create a new folder. I'm going to measure it as an area because when I actually measure volumes I can only measure them as area because I'm dealing with 2D drawings here. But I'm going to default display it to volume. So I'm going to change the default display to volume. When I'm measuring volumes I have to have a default height in there. The height of my concrete pads are 500 millimeters, so 0.5, and I'll keep it the color as lime green there. I'm going to click insert. Again, if I wanted to check the depth of my pads, I can see again based on the detail 0.2 across that foundation. You'll see a pad in a broken line. There it is there, essentially behind that strip footing. So if I wanted to measure that distance, I click drawings, measure distance, and I'm just going to see what the depth of that pad is. So it's 500 millimeters, and that's essentially what I put in as the default height. So I'm going to click back on my drawing that is 1:100 because that's essentially what I'm measuring it off, and there I have my pads, my pad volume down at the bottom of that folder, and I'm going to start measuring those pads. So again, as I showed you before, I can measure it in point mode and I can measure it in line mode. I might do both just to show. So starting in line mode, click, click, click. I'll jump across this space by clicking up here, click, click, hit enter. So there's 8 pads, click. That looks like it's coming down here, but once I click across, it jumps across. Enter. So that's 3 pads. I think there's 8 in total. I'm going to measure the last few in point mode, so changing from line mode to point mode, clicking on the corners. This one, I have to estimate where the point is. There is an actual corner to select, so slightly different. I've got 4 points here as opposed to 4 lines. Again, this one's easy. I've got 4 points. Coming back on the first point, Zoom in. These pads are 1.8 by 1.8 by 500 millimeters deep. I've got 8 of them. It's coming up with a total concrete area there, 13 meters cubed. If I click my dimensions, I'm just going to push with the crosshair, push those dimensions up. I'll see my 8 pads. So each one of them is 1.62 meters cubed. If I wanted to see the area, the little snowflake here on the top left hand corner of the dimension group dimensions tab, click that and select area. So I'll see the area there which I've added as a column. Click back to dimension groups. There's my 8 pads displayed. Again, I might want to see those in 3D. Drawings, view in 3D. So there's my 8 pads, and again, hovering over that dimension, I should have all my secondary quantities: total length, wall area, volume. Now if I wanted to delete one of those dimensions for whatever reason, I made a mistake, right click, delete dimension, and again I could redo it. If I wanted to uncomplete, right click. In fact, I don't think I can uncomplete a line dimension. Or if I wanted to add a point like I've done before, add a point, and I can manipulate that if need be. I don't want to do that, so I'm going to right click, delete a point, and again I can make adjustments to that measurement. The next item I'm going to measure is my strip footings. So I'm going to click dimensions tab, add dimension group, again keep it in standard, strip, area, but I'm going to choose it as a volume. This time I'm going to change my default height to 300 millimeters, 0.3, and I'm going to change my color to, let's say again, blue. Click insert. So now I've got a little volume cube to designate it as a volume measurement, as opposed to this grid square, which is essentially an area measurement. And I'm going to measure it in, well, again I can change it, but I'll start off with point mode. So in between my pads I have strip footings. Hit enter. Enter. So again, I have strip footings on my external walls, which are about 900 millimeters thick, although there's a couple of them a little bit thicker. Up in the corner here, you can see that that one there is 1015 millimeters thick. So my last few, maybe I'll change the point, click, jump across, hit enter. And my last one on my external walls. So there's my, I don't know, there's 8 strip footings, 2 on each side, but I also have some internal. So I'm going to measure the strip footings on my internal walls. They're also 300 millimeters thick. May have to, similar to what I'd done before, to split it up a couple of different sections. Again, with this point mode, you can come back and drag and drop those dimensions. Again, hit enter. So I've got 16 meters cubed of strip footings there. Again, where did I get the 300 millimeters default height? I would have taken it from my Foundations 2 plan, measure distance, and there is my 300 millimeters. This little bit at the bottom here is a lean mix blinding. So again, press escape and go back to the next thing I'm going to do is, that's the dimensions for my pad concrete foundations and my pad concrete strip foundations. I want to maybe reuse those dimensions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click, copy the dimension, and instead of pads copy, I may say pads excavation. Keep it in the standard folder. Do the same with my strip footings, copy excavation, click OK. So again, I've got the same measurements. In the pads excavation, I'm going to double click into my dimension to bring up my dimension group properties, and my default height here I'm going to change. The default height, or the depth of my excavation based on a previous cut and fill exercise I did, just take it from me, is 0.75. So again, you will have calculated that based on a cut and fill exercise, and I'm going to replace that 0.5 with 0.75. I'm going to say yes here because I want to change all the dimensions, and now I've got 19 meters cubed as opposed to 13 meters cubed. I'm going to do the same with my strip excavations. Double click in. These ones are 0.55, 550 millimeters. Click update, click yes, and now I've got 28 meters cubed of strip footings in terms of excavation. I might break up those pads concrete and pads excavations and strip concrete and strip excavations into subfolders. The way to do that is to double click on your dimension, and in front of or after standard, click / bottom left hand corner of your keyboard, and I'm going to put them in a subfolder called concrete. Click update. So now I've got standard concrete pads, and then I will do the same by right clicking my strip footing, change folder. That folder is available to me now, standard / concrete. Click OK, and I'm going to do the same with these. Right click, edit dimension group first, make a folder called standard / excavation, click update, and do the same by changing the folder for my excavation, my strip footings. So there we have two subfolders as such. Again, click, and I can collapse them to show my concrete and my excavation volumes. The next thing I'm going to measure is filling. So again, it's a new dimension, add dimension group, and I've got filling excavated material on the outside of my excavations, and I've got filling hardcore on the inside of my excavations. We can see it there in one of the details. So this is the external detail, external wall. I've got filling here. If I just click a little measure distance, 200 millimeters by, actually I need to change to my Foundations 2. So 200 millimeters by, say, 300 millimeters. And then I've got the same in terms of a little bit of filling on the inside of my excavations in terms of hardcore. So 200 millimeters by 300 millimeters, that's something to remember. Click back on the foundation plan. I'm going to use 1:100. And as I said before, dimension group, add a dimension group, filling to outside excavations. And maybe dash, this is going to be excavated material. Also going to be measurement type is going to be area. My default display will be volume, similar to what we had before. And based on my detail there, I noticed that it was 200 millimeters high, so 0.2. And I'm going to measure it as, or show it as an orange positive dimension. Click insert. So now we have filling to outside of excavations. It's gone into excavation there, but I can change that. In fact, double click again, and instead of standard / excavations, I might just say standard / filling. Click update. So now I've got a subcategory or subfolder called filling. I'm going to measure it in point mode. The first dimension I'm going to measure is the outside of my excavations. So working my way around the outside footprint of this building in terms of its excavations. Okay, so work my way around those recesses back to my original point. Click, hit enter. Now, the place where I have this filling, again per the detail, is on the outside face here, between the external leaf, outer side of that external leaf, and the outer edge of my foundation. So that's my excavated material there, up to a height of 200 millimeters, which I already put in. So what I'm going to do is, to get that area, which is essentially between that line and that line, I'm going to make a negative here. And quite simply, I'm going to just click on the outer leaf corners of my external wall. Click, hit enter. And I am going to click both, and I see my negative and I see my positive dimension, and the difference between the two, if I want to see it, is 4 meters cubed, but I want to see my dimensions there. I've got 47.71 meters cubed for the entire footprint, and then a minus 43.51. One minus the other is filling of the outside of my excavations with that excavated material of 4 meter cubed. Okay, the next dimension I'm going to measure is the inside with hardcore. So add dimension group. Again, I'm going to keep it in standard filling. The last entry I made will come up there, so I can keep that the same. And in this case, it's filling to inside excavations, and dash the material hardcore. In this case, instead of excavated materials, default display will be volume and the same height, 200 millimeters, 0.2. And again, I might change my color. In this case, keep it a kind of a light blue. Click insert. I can see my new dimension down here, and again, I'm going to start off maybe with the inside face here, breaking it up possibly into a number of sections. So I might do this area first. Again, using point mode. I tend to favor point mode to line mode, but again, it just depends on what your personal preference is. Certainly when it comes to line lengths, and we'll get to that in the next tutorial, it's probably easier to measure, or better to measure, and more accurate to measure in point mode. But measuring areas, it just depends what you favor. So I come back to the first point there, click enter. That's an area of 31, well, it's a cubic volume of 31 meters cubed. It's an area of 154 meters squared. But again, I'm going to click a negative, and I'm going to have my inside face of my foundations here. going around those pads on the inside face, we have essentially, be careful with this, there's a couple of points I could probably click on. We've got our hardcore. And come back on that first point, hit enter. Maybe you see both again. I've got 4 meters cubed, but I've got a few more additions to make here. I'm going to click positive again. So starting with, hopefully that's the right. You can see that I made a mistake. Backspace, start again, corner. Again, you get used to zooming in and zooming out, pushing down on your mouse wheel to kind of navigate around that drawing. That's an aptitude you will develop over time, and something that will become kind of second nature eventually. Again, zoom in there, get the right point. That's our positive dimension in this section. Hit enter. I'm going to click a negative on the inside face. Zoom out, back to the start, hit enter, click both to see how that's shaping up. I've got about 6 meters cubed to fill. My last few items here, positive first, again zoom in to get the right corner. When you're dealing with hatch lines there, it's very easy to click on the wrong point. Again, as I said, you could turn off geometry. I don't recommend it. You might as well use the points. It is handy to turn off geometry when you're measuring, for example, a center line and you don't have a line to click on. Click enter, and my last negative is just that little bit there. Click enter. So I'm going to show both. So there's essentially my fill area. It's 7 meters cubed. Again, I've got a wall area, I've got a volume, I've got an area, the area itself. Again, gives you the kind of total surface area of that measurement. To see that in 3D, drawing, view in 3D, and of course it's so little in terms of a height, 300 millimeters, it doesn't really show you a whole lot, but it's a good indication. Probably works better for walls than it does for volumes like that. But click 3D view again, and I'm going to measure one final dimension. On the dimensions tab, again, add dimension group. I'm going to measure topsoil. I'm going to drop it in the standard folder. I'm going to measure it as an area, but I'm going to show it as a volume, like I've done on previous dimensions in this video. I'm going to have a look at my boring record. I can see that if I zoomed in there, I can see that the topsoil is 300 millimeters high. So I'm just going to change the default height to 0.3 and maybe change my color to gold. In this case, it can be any color, as you know. Click insert. And I'm going to stay in line mode. So working my way around the outside footprint to the outside of the excavations, be it the pads or the strips. I'm looking essentially for the volume of topsoil to be disposed of, or to be excavated and disposed. So as I work my way around, I will eventually come back to my starting point. So I'm panning, zooming in, zooming out as need be, and again, this is, as I said before, something that you develop in terms of an aptitude over time, and you get quite proficient and quite quick. So click insert, and I've got a topsoil measurement of 72 meters cubed, along with length, area, wall area, etc. in terms of secondary quantities. So those quantities again can be used in my cost plan or my bill of quantities. I'm going to change the name of some of these dimensions. I have excavation pads, excavation here. I'm just going to change the name, maybe my pads and strip footings for concrete, just to show you that after the fact you can change the name there. So I'm going to double click In fact, the name is grayed out here, so if you try and type something in there, you won't be able to. To do that, you click top left hand corner, Costex options, and I'm going to check drawings, and down here about halfway down or towards the end of this Costex options drawings tab, I'm going to click rename dimension groups. Click OK. So once I click on that dimension again, I can just type in pads-concrete. Now I don't really need to do this in this case because I already had a subfolder called concrete, but just to indicate how that might be done if you want to change the name after you've carried out a measurement. Click update, click yes, and similar to pads excavations, strip excavations, I have pads/concrete. So that is essentially the video tutorial.